And AFSCME is the largest public sector union in America, representing essentially the equivalent of our QP and OPSEU combined. Last night, how many were at the movie last night? Wasn't it a great movie? Wasn't it fabulous? Well, Paul Booth, who's with us here today, is the assistant to the president of AFSCME and was involved in the fightbacks in all of those states and also making sure that that movie got produced. So we've asked him to come here. We had a labor screening last night. HotDocs, it got a standing ovation at HotDocs. The only film at HotDocs to get a standing ovation. And we have an opportunity to pack the HotDocs showing on Friday at 4 o'clock, on Sunday at 3:30, and actually start the big buzz. That means it will get distribution rights, and if it gets distribution rights, it can be seen all across North America. So let your friends know they can still go and see We Are Wisconsin at hotdocs.ca. Paul has graciously agreed to stay a little bit, talk to our delegates here tonight about what's going on in Wisconsin and the U.S. Overall, and also take some questions as well. Please welcome Brother Paul Booth.
Thank you, John. First, I bring you greetings from the battlegrounds, all those battlegrounds in the states, where, as John says, the right wing has stirred up a hornet's nest of opposition, arousing labor from our resting places. As they did in 1946 and 1994, these politicians gained power in many states in 2010 elections and set about using that power to throttle us. In 1947, how many of you remember that? Oh, just me, okay. Take my word for it. In 1947, they passed the Taft-Hartley Act, which has burdened our movement in the states ever since. It introduced right to work, so-called. It outlawed the secondary boycott, and it created the ridiculous concept under which we live known as employer-free speech, which we organizers experience as the devastating intimidation union busters bring down upon workers at the first sign of an organizing effort. Hell, it doesn't even, in our country, even require a union drive for the hammer to come down on workers. Some of you may have read this past fall, 13 workers arrived at work wearing red shirts on behalf of their favorite sports team. The boss fired them all on the spot. And his lawyer says it's no violation of the Labor Act because it turns out that a union was nowhere under consideration. But did he ask them back? Hell no. What does that prove about the country that is your neighbor to the south? That the employer class in America demands the freedom to take whatever advantage of workers that suits them. There is a word for that. The word is exploitation. And that is what is at stake in the struggles that we are waging. So when the politicians who worship at Capitol's table gained more power in Wisconsin, Ohio, Florida, Indiana, Michigan, and more than a dozen other states, they made repeal of union rights their first priority. And what they did not anticipate was the rapidity, the intensity, and the widespread popularity of the movement that rose up to stand in their way to block their path. For 4 weeks in February, we occupied the state capitol in Wisconsin. A 1,000 of us inside and as many as 100,000 outside. Outside with the snow coming down on us. It was the students who got there first. We, public employees of Wisconsin, will never forget that it was the students who marched up State Street and occupied the Capitol. The university students and the high school students. We blocked their move. Did I mention the name of our adversary?
No. Not yet.
His name is Scott Walker. Thank you. And when he used a parliamentary maneuver, an illegal one, but one that the Supreme Court upheld in a typical 4-3 ideological vote, and enacted Senate Bill 11, which was called the Budget Repair Act in Wisconsin. It was not about repairing the budget. The budget was not broken. They lied about their budget, just as your politicians lie about your budgets. But we were not disheartened. We resolved to carry the fight until we drive him out of office, which is exactly what we will do 33 days from today. Our members of Wisconsin have taken matters into their own hands. That is what makes work for power. That is what democracy looks like. That is our watchword. That's what we say. Say it with me. Tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. They are empowered with the knowledge that their friends in other states from whom collective bargaining has been taken away have won it back. In January of 2009, a new administration took over the government of Puerto Rico, where we have many members. Luis Fortuño was sworn in as governor on January 1st, declared an economic emergency, and by the 9th of March had enacted Law 7, which terminated all collective bargaining agreements in the public sector that were underway, suspended all economic provisions for premium pay, that is to say, all the shift differentials, the Christmas bonuses, everything other than base wages, and set in motion reductions, layoffs that amounted to 14,000 of the 100,000 workers that we represented. We used every form of mass protest available that we could think of, including a one-day general strike that literally shut down everything on the island of Puerto Rico, which was not sufficient. They had a 2/3 majority in their legislature, and as I said, by March 9th, they had enacted this. And we didn't stop. We should never stop. We pursued every one of those legislators who had voted for that. For 2 years, we pursued them. And then in 2011, they enacted a law restoring collective bargaining to our members in Puerto Rico. They passed it unanimously. The governor vetoed it. We went back. They passed it again unanimously with 1 vote exception. And the governor still didn't like the way it was written, and he vetoed it again. And then they passed it a 3rd time. And on May 29th, he signed it and put his arm around me as if nothing had ever happened. And we went back to the negotiating table and have settled our contracts for all of our bargaining units with an average of 17% pay raises. And with $10 million in back pay for the overtime that our correctional officers were deprived of. We had lost collective bargaining at one time in New Mexico. We got it back. In Missouri, we lost it. We got it back. In Kentucky, we had lost it, and we got it back. These are things that our members in Wisconsin know. We lost we've lost a tremendous number of rights in Michigan this year. They have a law called the Emergency Manager Law. Beware of an emergency manager law. This law not only gives the governor the power to obliterate our collective bargaining agreements, it gives him the power of for 5 years in any place where it's declared to obliterate the local government itself by his own act, by the act of an appointed emergency manager. It gives them the power to suspend. There are 17 different kinds of rights that you would think citizens of a democracy would enjoy, all subject to suspension. An emergency manager is in place in Pontiac, Michigan, Benton Harbor, Michigan, in Flint, Michigan, pending in Detroit, Michigan. The majority of the African Americans who live in Michigan now have lost the right to vote for their own city governments. And they have removed our right to the payroll deduction of dues from our members who work in the schools. Not just our members, but also the school teachers themselves in Michigan. And in Indiana, they passed a right to work law. So we haven't won all of our battles. And as I say, they took it away in Wisconsin, and they also did it in Ohio. In Ohio, they passed a law called Senate Bill